Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the long and winding Royal Road. My name's W.H. Park, recently vaccinated with the first dose of Pfizer, proud to say, and I will be getting my second dose in a couple of months. And then I'll be still wearing a mask after that because this province that I live in, which is Ontario, is full of idiots. So I will not be trusting the general public not to be giving me COVID regardless if I'm fully vaccinated or not. But anyways, enough of that. This is the long and winding road, the look back at the greatest era of in-ring professional wrestling in the history of this great sport. And that's the 1990s era of All Japan Pro Wrestling, just in case you weren't aware or a new listener. And my guest today is Rich Fann from the Pro Wrestling Torch. Now, Rich, I had to ask you, is it Rich Fann or is it Rich Fann the second?
It's either I put the second up there just because my dad hates Junior or hated Junior. So when he named me, it was Richard Fann the second. It's Rich Fann. I've known myself most of my life. Like when people call me things, it'd be Rich Fann. So Rich Fann works for me.
All right, so we'll just use Rich today because, like, I think you and I can be on first name basis here.
I think so. I think we've earned that with WH. We've served together, and we dug coal and fought against the forces of that cross-Atlantic evil during NXT. What was it? NXT. Oh God, I can't even remember the name of the quiz show now. I failed us all.
Oh, on Up Next.
Up Next. There we go.
Up Next, right. Yeah. Braden Harrington and Davey Portman. Check out their Patreon. Check out their wonderful shows covering not just NXT, but like tons of other things. But I was not part of the team. I did have to do my joke to like when Will Cooling would say, WH, you should help us be part of the team. I'd be like, listen, I got to prepare to do a show, a podcast with a real podcaster, a real journalist named John Pollock, not Will Cooling. But it's all in jest because I do respect Will Cooling very much. He does some great work. He just did a great report about the APPG, that's about professional wrestling in the United Kingdom. Go check that out. He did a great podcast about it, and you guys talked about it recently on your own podcast, right, Rich?
Yeah, we did. It was a good chat. We did it call-in format, so kind of educating folks who had called in on what was going on across the pond, how it can be received compared to like our American side of things. Because going into the election last year, Andrew Yang in particular had espoused that he was going to be pushing for unionization of wrestlers and all these things when if Joe Biden became president. And lo and behold, he's focused more on becoming mayor of New York than any of that stuff.
Well, yeah, I don't ever see unionization of wrestling ever happen in my lifetime because, simply because wrestlers are marks for the business and they will never unionize. If only half of them want to unionize, it'll never happen. They all have to want to unionize, and most of them don't want to unionize. So I think a lot of them are anti-union. So that's just my estimation on that. But not only do we have a mutual acquaintance in one Will Cooling, but we also have one in one Nate Milton, who I do podcasts about the MCU with. And you've done podcasts with our good friend, Brother Nate.
Of course, yes. Brother Nate usually had me on for the NWA, and then he just had me on a few weeks ago to talk WrestleMania. I was quite jealous when I saw you guys are going to be doing Falcon Winter Soldier together because Nate, I love the way he puts things together. And obviously I love, as I've sold the folks on my show, we try not to be a silo when it comes to content, because the one thing I've picked up from this pandemic is people need stuff to listen to. And I love you and Nate and everyone at the Post, really the commentary y'all have had with doing the MCU shows, and then how you can tie it into your wrestling and outside of wrestling interests. And that just makes it seem like we have interests outside of wrestling, which is always helpful and help color a conversation.
Well, I should also put over the wonderful people at Pro Wrestling Torch, not only yourself, Rich, Will Cooling, but my good friend, Alan Farrell, Alan Cunahan, always have wonderful opinions about the world of wrestling, especially Japanese wrestling. And I was listening to you guys, and was it Sean Sedor? Mm-hmm. Or Sean Radican? I forget.
Yeah, Sean Radican probably.
Radican. Sorry, I don't know why. Mixing up the Seans I associate with wrestling in my head here, but like you guys did a wonderful dissection of current New Japan product, and probably more honest and forthcoming than I was recently. But like I just like to say ghetto is shit, but Alan, you and Sean just like took it to the product, especially Alan, which is it's not comedy here because Alan tends to be a bit more, tries to lean into the positivity about his love of professional wrestling. So, but check all that stuff over at the Torch on the VIP side, I believe, and it's worth our membership for sure to check that out. But Rich, today we're going to talk about All Japan of the 1990s, and I want listeners to know like what's your background as a fan of this era of wrestling.
The reasons I was really excited about doing this podcast with you is this match in particular was my introduction to All Japan in the 90s and All Japan proper. And so this to me was something in college that became a bit of an obsession because at the time I had fallen. It was still the Attitude Era. I went to college in 99, 2000. So it was in the throes of the Attitude Era. And while that was entertaining, I once I saw this, I wanted to see more, do more, think more about it. And so I just would buy tapes on eBay and go through all the usual methods to acquire them. And then, Kazaa and all these other illegal streaming services, people were randomly sharing them there. And so I just kept searching. And I was a Misawa guy. I was always, out of the pillars, each of my friends, we took one. One of my buddies, my best buddy, Chris Maitland, who appears a lot on my shows on the Torch, was a big Kobashi guy. I watched this match, and Stan Hansen really came to life for me between this match and then there was another one where he wrestled Ricky Chosu and kept calling him Chosu Ricky and then spitting after he would say his name. And so just the animus and the insanity of All Japan, just it sucked me in from the moment I saw it. And so this 90s era is hard hitting. Obviously, everyone talks about strong style, but when you talk about it, I think this match exemplifies it for good and bad because this is stuff, if you saw it now, you'd probably get 7 think pieces about how the wrestlers did so many unnecessary things to themselves. But at that time, they were really trying to establish themselves as this style. And so they said, basically to hell with the consequences. We're just going to do this. And it needs to be seen. So if you haven't seen any of the 90s All Japan, get a pack of ice, sit down, and just enjoy it.
Well, would I be wrong in assuming that then that this match that we're going to talk about, we'll introduce it in a second, but that your introduction to All Japan was your introduction to Japanese wrestling as a whole?
Actually, it wasn't. My introduction to Japanese wrestling as a whole was the All Japan, New Japan, WWF Wrestling Summit, where I got to watch Hulk Hogan wrestle in a style I had never seen before. Like, I can tell you, I had never been more thrown off than when I saw Terry Bollea hit an enziguri in the middle of a match and then transition into chain wrestling. I thought I had a stroke. I was like, wait, do I smell almonds? Am I dead? Am I dreaming that the boring big dude is now all of a sudden like the smoothest cat in the ring? And it made me realize at a younger age, and then as I got older, I realized how much of a craven opportunist he was. He gets his audience, and he'll give them what they want. And so that was my actual first introduction to a version of Japanese wrestling.
Right. I wouldn't call anything that had WWF involvement like pure, ProRes. But one thing I wanna just comment on before we get into the match itself is you mentioned strong style, the term strong style, and the nerd in me came out and thought, no, but Rich, we're talking about Royal Road. We're talking about the King's Road here. We're not
I know. It slipped out because it's become, in this modern era, they've become interchangeable, which they aren't. And I apologize for all my All Japan heads in the streets. I know I just lost some points. But yes, the Royal Road versus strong style, Enochiism versus Baba, and oh, dear God, Baba. I could probably do a podcast just on my love of Baba as a commentator. He was my Gorilla Monsoon as I waded into all of the All Japan matches. Because anytime I said, I was just like, I had no idea what you just said, but Baba to me was saying, like, preaching from the mountaintop. And I was just entranced with him. And then when I saw him in the ring, it was even better because it was clear, like, the boss is in the ring, make this dude look great. And it was just so obviously pro wrestling that it let me kind of like understand some of the similarities between American and Japanese style, where the differences are so vast in terms of the like you said, the Royal Road versus say American versus say strong style.
Yeah, I mean, like I hate that term now, strong style,
Yeah.
because it was bastardized by like early 2000s Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Like where fucking Gabe Sapolsky was going on about American strong style, and it's like, no, these dudes are just dropping themselves on each other's head. This is not, it's neither strong style nor the Royal Road. Like I would say of like that entire scene, there's like maybe three wrestlers who ever came close to epitomizing either strong style or the Royal Road. That would be like Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, and probably, and I'll say it low key, that's it. Everyone else are just like pretenders to like trying to do it, like including people like Homicide and who else would be a pretender to that?
Strong.
Oh, Dave. Oh, Roderick Strong. Not really. JD Rich is definitely a pretender to that. That's not to say I don't enjoy their work. I do, but I just hate that they would adopt like this idea of strong style or Royal Road to their style of wrestling. It's no, you are firmly entrenched in like the being like American wrestlers who love a certain style, but you have not actually adopted that style to a point where you could call yourselves masters of it. You're just kind of like pretenders to it. But anyways, I'm not going to get on a rant about American, indie style back in the early 2000s. That's something I could say for my good friend, over at Grapple. Then that would be Benno. I'm sure I'd have a wonderful conversation about that with him. But let's talk about the match that you picked, Rich. Like, which match are we going to talk about today?
All right, so this is July 1993. This is Kenta Kobashi versus Stan Hansen. And this is one of my favorite matches because, like I said, it was my first All Japan match. And the story, just as a general idea, at this point in 93, Kobashi had not yet ascended to be a pillar. He was not one of the four pillars yet. And so because of that, he's this not necessarily bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, or fresh-faced, but he's an ascending talent that wants to prove himself against Hansen, who's been known across New Japan, All Japan, as a hard hitter, as a bad dude. And so he's a gatekeeper in a style that really is, God bless you. I had a chance in this. I'll save that to the end. That'll be my Marvel postscript stinger. But with this match, it was something different to me because while it was a brawl, while it was a head drop spectacle, it also made sense. And I know you said you didn't want to talk about it, but I think that also pulled at me because I was starting to watch early Ring of Honor, and I could see one thing is not like the other. The idea of a fighting spirit in America became let's kick out of a move and let's no-sell a move, as opposed to what the impetus is behind those kickouts, the impetus behind what the not necessarily no-sell, but delayed sell meant. And so this match was chock full of all of that and more. And you can hear it not only with the fear that starts this match for Hansen, because the crowd, as always, is afraid of Stan Hansen because he is the Gaijin of Gaijin. This dude should have caught like at least 10 cases while he was in Japan between the number of people he's hit with that cowbell or bull rope on the way to the ring. And it just, the finish of this match, I don't think there's few times in my life I've made the noise I made the first time I saw that finish.
I can share the sentiment. The first time I hadn't watched this match in a long time, but I remember like, I wonder if it's the particular Kobashi Hansen match that I remember. And it was because once I got to the finish, once this finish was being set up, I was like, oh, here it comes. And then we'll save the finish for, of course, during the match review. But the finish, I popped out because I thought Hansen had committed murder on Kobashi in the what he did to him. But one thing we should talk about the individual participants in this match, and that one is Kenta Kobashi, of course. And this is like an era, like you were saying, Rich. This is an era where like Kobashi is coming out of like being like kind of the third guy in the Super Generation Army behind Misawa, behind Kawada, and just kind of ahead of his tag team partner Tsuyoshi Kikuchi. At this point, I think like. I can't remember if Kawada has formed the Holy Demon Army with Taue at this point yet, but if he hasn't, then he's Kobashi hasn't ascended to the role of being Misawa's tag team partner, his right hand man, so to speak. So this is a very important match for Kobashi because he's kind of emerged out of that undercard guy, and like you can see that Baba has a lot of faith in him, and that Kobashi has proven himself as this kind of like guy that you can rest the company on, along with people like Misawa and Kawada. And I think with regards to Stan Hansen, like he is the perfect word. He's the gatekeeper. He is such an important person in this time in 1993 to the ascension of pretty much all the pillars, but in particular to Kobashi and to Toshiaki Kawada. Not so much with Misawa because that's Jumbo's role, right? Like by default for reasons, that are only known to Giant Baba, like, Baba never pulled the trigger as far as like Misawa beating Jumbo for the Triple Crown. But the first time, like that Misawa wins the Triple Crown, becomes champion, it's against Stan Hansen. Stan Hansen's the one that puts him over. But, a lot of people whose opinion I trust, and then like I'm watching matches between Hansen and Misawa myself recently, and like I'm just like, yeah, Hansen and Misawa don't have a very smooth chemistry. Like they don't work very well together, oddly enough. But like the chemistry that Hansen has with Toshiaki Kawada and Kenta Kobashi is off the charts. Like, especially I think with Kobashi, because they are so similar in the way they wrestle and in like kind of the moves that are in their repertoire. Like in particular, the lariats and the chops. Like those are things that I think like Kobashi, it probably was inspired by people like Hansen. And I'm going to also say people like Riki Choshu at the time as well. Were probably like, okay, I want to be a wrestler like that. But you can see like Kobashi patterns himself a lot probably on Hansen because he got beat up by Hansen so much as a young boy.
Yeah, and to help your point, Holy Demon Army started in about, I want to say February or March of '93. So at this point, this singles match is the start of Misawa and Kobashi starting to feud with Hansen and I want to say it was Hansen, either DiBiase or
Spivey. I think it's either it might be
the Miracle.
Spivey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're right. And so this is that push for that, because I know in September they the Miracle Violence Connection wrestled Hansen and DiBiase, and that was when DiBiase kind of got put in to replace Spivey. I can't remember the particulars of that because my brain doesn't work that way anymore. But going to your point, the closest Baba would do is to have the announcer scream "New Hero" after Misawa got the win, and that was like this is kind of like you won the Triple Crown against. It's like, but you beat him. You get close enough. You get what you get, and I, in my own headcanon, watching All Japan, especially at that point, 7-8 years after it happened, especially seeing what happened that eventually became Noah. In my head, Misawa would wake up at night angry that those two had the chemistry with Hansen that he did not, because it just seemed like a very Misawa thing to be upset about. It's like, why would you two have it and not me? Like, I should have everything. But that's probably a podcast for another time, because when I grew in my love for Misawa, as I got older, I realized that a lot of the decisions he made and some of the things he did weren't necessarily where I was. And I even now in my older age, I'm not that old. I shouldn't pretend like I'm this ancient creature, but I've gotten more of an appreciation for Taue and how he's become the other guy and never really had a chance to get his moment in the sun. But that like I said, that's a podcast for another time.
Definitely. Like you're on the right podcast. You want to spread the love of one Akira Taue, because I have a lot of love for Taue myself. That grew out of like years of like just watching him again and thinking, you know what, he's awkward, he's gangly looking, but my God, he's awesome. He's such an amazing wrestler. But we're not going to talk about Akira Taue too much today, Rich. We're gonna talk about Stan Hansen and Kenta Kobashi, and just to give a little bit more background to this match, I want to go through their singles record. So they have had, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 singles matches against each other, including the one we're going to talk about today. The first time they meet is in September 1991, September 4th, to be exact, at Budokan Hall, and Stan Hansen defeats Kenta Kobashi. March 27th, 1992, in a champion carnival match in the Wakayama Prefectural Gymnasium, Stan Hansen defeats Kobashi. In July 8th of 1992, at the Aomori Prefectural Gymnasium, Hansen defeats Kobashi. And then this match happens. And then after this match, April 10th, 1994, Champion Carnival at the Miyagi Sports Center in Sendai. At this point, Kobashi has ascended. Kobashi defeats Stan Hansen in a Champion Carnival match. And then finally, their last singles match against each other, September 5th, 1996, at the Nippon Budokan Triple Crown title match. The champion at the time, Kenta Kobashi, defeats challenger Stan Hansen. Kind of a role reversal, though I don't think Hansen ever defended the Triple Crown against Kenta Kobashi. So it's just kind of a great, like, kind of affirmation for Kobashi that he gets to defeat one of his greatest rivals, as not only in a Champion Carnival match, but like 2 years later as the Triple Crown champion himself.
Yeah, and that's like I said, I got a nice little stinger because one of my greatest achievements as a quote unquote wrestling journalist is when I represented the Torch at StarCast in Vegas before the first Double or Nothing. I got to interview Kenta Kobashi and Stan Hansen about this match. And it happened solely because they were at the booth. Nobody was going to them. I was angry that no one was going to Kenta Kobashi and Stan Hansen to take pictures and get autographs and talk to these pillars of wrestling history, and instead getting photos with MJF. No offense to MJF. And so first I talked to Kobashi through, I believe it was his daughter who was there as a translator. And then I went to talk to Hansen, and then they both came over and started talking together, and I could have died.
See, like you say StarCast, and then you say no one's going to get pictures with Hansen or Kobashi. And I'm like, okay, MJF. All right. Who else? Ken-chan, the Bucks. Please, I'd be like, you people can go get your photographs with those goofballs. I'm gonna go talk to some legends, some real professional wrestlers over here. Thank you very much.
They had a police escort and all this for Sting, Bucks, Cody, Ken-chan. You had nothing for Stan Hansen. He was reading a book, and Kobashi was just a happy Japanese old man sitting there, and he had the first thing he said was he was quite surprised I wanted to talk to him. And I was like, sir, I'm surprised you're allowing me to talk to you, because there should have been a vetting process. There should have been me paying money. Like, I don't care, journalist or not, there is no way in the world I should be able to walk up to Kenta Kobashi when no one's talking to him and have more than 3 seconds of his time, because this man survived cancer. He survived Kawada. He survived Misawa. He survived Stan Hansen, who told me the lariat in this match, as with all of the lariats in this match, because he's half blind, was just, I can't see him. I'm going to throw it as hard as I can. And he's like, maybe I should have laid off on that.
Yeah, we should also mention to people that, like, they have a crazy history together, because at one point in a particular match, Stan Hansen breaks Kenta Kobashi's arm.
Yeah.
And to the point where, and this obviously would get Kobashi pretty hot at Hansen. Mm-hmm. Like Misawa, I think it was Misawa, had to prevent Kobashi from, like, pretty much trying to put Hansen in the hospital himself. Because, like, obviously, hey, you broke my fucking arm. I'm going to kill you now. Like, that's understandable being that hot at someone. But, like, that the fact that, like, his friends had to, keep him from doing it to Stan Hansen. But, I would imagine water under the bridge, and they are very happy to see one another when you got to talk to them both.
Yeah, and this was the best part about it was that Hansen didn't realize that Kobashi was there, which, again, StarCast, what the F? Like, and so he was talking about it. He was one of his favorite opponents. I was like, and I basically became the talk show host. Like, well, I don't know if you know this, but he's literally right behind you. And he's like, what? And then off he popped, and, he shuffle walked his way over, and I directed him. And it was just so frustrating to me that these guys didn't realize they were so close to each other. It was like, we can get back to this match, but at the end of the day, if anyone ever brings Kenta Kobashi to your conference or your convention or whatever it is, and you spend more time with the two little boys who love Jesus, No offense. I love Jesus too. I can't trust you. Can't trust you.
I can't trust any wrestling promoter, convention organizer that doesn't put these two guys together in like a panel. What was a panel that day? Like fucking Cody Rhodes talking about how he feeds his fucking dog. I don't know. Some shit like that.
Muto. It was Muto.
Oh,
with Sonny Ono.
Oh, never mind. Okay. Okay. You say Muto. Okay. Okay. That's okay. Sonny Ono, con man. Yeah. Fuck that guy. Anyways, Rich, let's get to this match. Kenta Kobashi versus Stan Hansen, July 29th, 1993. This happens at Budokan Hall, one of my favorite venues to ever have seen professional wrestling in. This is part of the All Japan Summer Action Series from 1993. This is day 22 of that tour. And I'm going to go through the card and then we'll get into the match. So opening match was Takao Omori versus Satoru Asako. Joel Deaton, Ryukaku Izumida, and Yoshinari Ogawa taking on Mighty Inoue, Mitsuo Momota, and Rusher Kimura. That's probably the comedy match on this card. Pete Roberts, a very underrated British wrestler, and Richard Slinger, the cousin of Terry Gordy, taking on the Youngbloods, Chris and Mark Youngblood. Giant Baba, Kurt Bayer, and the Destroyer versus Haruka Aigen, Masanobu Fuchi, and Masao Inoue. I would assume Kurt Bayer is related to the Destroyer, Dick Bayer, maybe his son?
I think so. I remember this one because this is one of those Masafuchi appreciation moments where anytime he and Bob are in a ring together, it's just going to be fun.
Match number 5, tag match, Jun Akiyama and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi taking on the British Bruisers of Dynamite Kid and Johnny Smith. Number 6, Steve Williams and Terry Gordy, the Miracle Violence Connection, taking on the team of Johnny Ace and Kendall Windham, the brothers of Road Warrior Animal and Barry Windham. What a tag team that must have been. Match 7, Akira Taue taking on Big Bubba Rogers. I don't know if you've seen some of the matches where as Boss Man in his Boss Man gear, like he comes to All Japan, and my God, I was like, Baba, just throw Hansen money at this man, try to get him to stay in All Japan, and let him wear. And God, Vince probably doesn't watch All Japan, so he's not going to know. Let him wear the big Boss Man uniform.
I mean, those matches were, again, reminders as I watched more, and it was less of the best of matches because obviously, I believe if I remember correctly, this was on the 5-star matches in 1993 tape I got and then dubbed for all of my wrestling friends. Like my one investment while I was in college was a double-decker VCR so that I could dub these and then basically split the order cost with my friends, and we would have our own separate collections of whatever we bought as a group. So we had a little like enclave of our little collective, if you will. I'm sure Vince will sue me for saying collective too as well. So, but yeah, Big Bubba was crazy then. Yeah, you were right. Kurt Bayer is the Destroyer's son. He actually went with his dad to Japan and got trained by Kobashi of all people, which ties into our semi-main. So that's pretty wild.
And here we go. Match 8 is Kenta Kobashi versus Stan Hansen, and but that's not the main event. Rich, the main event is a Triple Crown title match. It's Misaharu Misawa, the Triple Crown champion, taking on Toshiaki Kawada. And I'm just looking at this information is coming from our good friends over at Cage Match, and I'm looking at the match ratings for this match is 9.41, the Kobashi Hansen match versus the Misawa Kawada match, which is 8.29. And what did Dave give this? Dave gave the Kobashi
6 stars, I think.
No, it's
the Kawada
5.
match.
The Kawada
Misawa.
Misawa Kawada is only 4.25, while he gave Kobashi Hansen 5 full stars, which in 2021 means it's a 3.5-star match to Dave scale, right? So. I love Dave, but come on, you break your own scale. I can make fun of you. That's you just open yourself to be making fun of with as far as your match ratings go. No,
you're right. It was. Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of the Superpower series, night 16 in '94. That was the 6-star match, which people. It's funny because he did it for Kinchan but then people forgot he had done it before, but because it wasn't on the internet and stuff, and you could pay attention and keep track of him and call him out on it. I'm sure maybe 3 people wrote him back then that said, "How dare you, sir? How dare you change this number?"
I will go back in the Observer archives to do some research stuff, and I do like to go to the letters, the fan letters, and I don't think you would have anyone who have the temerity to like question Dave in the letters pages of his own newsletter, as opposed to like on Twitter, which you see a lot of. But that is what it is.
That's one of those things, honestly. And it's some of the folks I follow do it, and I shake my head because listen, at the end of the day, and that's why I love doing stuff on other platforms like here with the Post. At the end of the day, people listen what they listen to, they watch what they watch, they read what they read. You don't have to treat any of us like if you think this match sucks at the end. First of all, I'm not going to trust you. Second of all, that's fine. It's an opinion. I say it's 5 stars and you say it's 5.25. God bless. But don't turn it into, well, this guy obviously has it in. It's like, come on, man, you're wasting your energy. There's other things you can tweet about that are far more important than whether Dave Meltzer gave 6 stars to this as opposed to Kenny's love letter to, I don't even know anymore. Being a weenie.
Some anime, some fucking video game he played like 7 hours straight. I don't know. Anyways, let's talk. I want to turn this into. I should come onto your show and just like tell you all about my love for the Elite and stuff like that. But anyways,
oh my god, people would lose their mind. They're like, "What happened to WH? Like, what's going on?" It's like I don't know. He just came on the torch. Imagine like he loves the Elite. That's what happened.
That's right. That's would happen in some alternate reality, like of like the reverse WH. Like there's the reverse Flash. There's the reverse WH out there in some multiverse where I'm a big fan of. Like I have a poster of the Young Bucks in my bedroom. That would never happen in this reality. So, anyways, let's talk about this match. Like right off the bat, Rich, before the match even starts. Like the streamers are being thrown in and they're being cleared by the young boys, the ring attendants outside. And one guy sticks his head to where on the side of the ring that Stan Hansen is on. And Stan Hansen just starts stomping away at this poor guy's head. And this really pisses off Kobashi. So like, I can't really tell who it is. But my guess and in my headcanon is that he's stomping away at Kobashi's best friend and tag team partner, Tsuyoshi Kikuchi. And that's like, oh, it's on now, Hansen. You fucked up my friend. I'm gonna fuck you up now.
Yeah, it's wild to see it because first he hits some fans, and then he beats the crap. I'm gonna go with your headcanon. If it's Kikuchi, then it's just really, it's like you mother, like just, and that goes into the match, right? Because the majority of this match, if you haven't seen this yet, it's a mixture of hardcore, not in the stupid I'm bleeding method, but in terms of like these guys are having a freaking fight. They're punching, I think of Peter versus Chicken from Family Guy, where like they'll wrestle, fall out of the ring, punch each other in the face, headbutt, slam, kick, kick in the throat. These guys just go at it, and it's built out of animus. This isn't, we're going to show you a great match, love us. This is, I want to kill you. And that was the first thing, like I said, my introduction to All Japan was these two guys saying, I'm going to kill you.
Well, I think for Hansen, like his attitude is very much, this is it's another match against Kobashi. Okay. Yeah. Right. For him, it's business as usual, but then he attacks Kikuchi on the outside. And then Kobashi is like, he just runs over. He boots Hansen in the face. He chops him to the mat and then starts laying the boots into him. And like Hansen, and this is like so unprecedented, Hansen rolls out of the ring. He's running away from Kobashi because he is afraid of this man. He's afraid of this young boy that he used to beat the shit out of on a regular basis for like 5 years straight. So, Kobashi's not going to let him escape. He's still pissed off. So he follows him out. He peppers Hansen with these rapid slaps and then gives him a DDT to the floor. And like, this is in the, Rich, this is like not even the first 3 minutes have passed in this match. And we've gotten all this. And it's all like offense against Hansen from Kobashi. It's awesome.
Yeah, you see the look on his face. It's a mixture of not even fear, it's surprise. Like you said, this is a dude, he's been thrown in a locker for a while now. And so having him, every time Hansen tries to fight back, Kobashi is just hitting him, probably like 20% harder than he's hit him. And it just keeps building. And the fans feel it. Like by the time he gets him in that face lock, the fans are like, Kobashi, Kobashi. They are ready for this dude to just keep wrecking this guy. And every time Hansen, being a smart wrestler, rolls out of the ring and he's building it up, people are so fired up for Kobashi. And I would love to hear about your thoughts on when he hit that baseball slide and then he goes back to the headlock. It's like, this is basic stuff, but it means so much.
I mean, we'll get to the headlock. I have a lot of thoughts about like the use of the headlock and he kind of uses Misawa's face lock. He uses a rear chin lock. He uses a headlock. We'll get into these because like it all builds into like the story of this match, which is just an amazing story when you really take a look at it. So like we're still on the outside, and like Hansen, he survives the DDT. He fires back with slaps of his own to Kobashi, but Kobashi ain't taking any of Hansen's shit on this day, and just lays into him with some stiff chops to the chest, and then just fires a short range lariat. Like what this is adding insult to injury because you're using the man's own move against him, and he just knocks Hansen down. This is like a stiff, like you can hear like bone to bone, flesh to flesh being hit here. Like when he hits him with this lariat, Hansen tries to mount a comeback and he fights his way off his back. But, Kobashi being on top of him is just too much for him. And Kobashi keeps laying in the stiff shots to Hansen. Basically, it's a role reversal, Rich. It's like, this is what Hansen would be doing to some young boy, with Kobashi in the Hansen role.
Yeah. And I love the fact that, in that first exchange outside, we didn't even talk about the shoulder block. Kobashi was lit. Dude was just like, I'm 260 some odd pounds. I'm just going to throw it all at you, bro. And when they're back in the ring, he hit the lariat. He does the leg drop where I was like, whoa, this dude's just like, Kobashi's just going for it, isn't he? And constantly, when they're outside, he's constantly, instead of doing, like you see it a lot in New Japan, the Irish whip, he's doing more of that crash into the barricade or into the fencing. And it's so visceral the way that he is going at Hansen. And Hansen, we're not even at the 5-minute mark. And Hansen, God bless him, because I would have been blown up at this point. Because this big man is just coming at me from every which, just arms and legs, throwing everything. And Hansen's keeping up.
Oh, I mean, Hansen's cardio off the charts. Like, he had to keep up with all these dudes in the 90s. And he's like maybe hitting, like, I don't know if he's hit 40 yet, but like, he's not a spring chicken anymore. And he's a big man. Like, we're talking Vader big, but his cardio, like, I think being trained by the Funks and working like Japan as much as he did, and then like working, territories like, I think it was like in Georgia for Ole Anderson and things like that, was like pretty much like, contributed to the fact that he's probably got really good cardio. But yeah, he's, like Hansen's trying to survive Kobashi. He goes for headbutts. Kobashi fires back with a stiff lariat and the leg drop, and he goes for a 2 count that the crowd really buys into. And like we said before, this is like, within the 3 to 5 minute range of this match. We're not even close to even the middle of it. And this crowd is so, hot for this. I think, the thing we'll see a lot is that, at some point, like, you'll see them going for covers on each other, trying to finish the match. Like, for Kobashi, it's because I think he knows, like, oh my God, my first singles win over Stan Hansen is so palpable. It's so close. So he goes for them. For Hansen, he just wants to survive. And I'll get to that idea. But his reasoning for going for covers as much as he does in this match that we'll get to is not because he wants to punish or humiliate or just to beat Kobashi. In this match, he wants to survive Kobashi because Kobashi is going to destroy him, and he knows it if he doesn't, like, try to finish the match. So from here, Kobashi shifts gear by laying in a face lock. And, I just listened to a really great podcast from my good friend Jamesy over at the We Don't Know Wrestling Podcast Network. He does a show called the Boots and Trunk Podcast, and he did a whole episode just on with the headlock. And I just was thinking about him when I was looking at, Kobashi putting in these transition moves. These aren't rest holds, Rich. These are transition moves.
Yeah. And just to help you for the age, 44 years old at the time of this match.
Yeah, 44.
Yeah, 44. He was born in 1949.
And he's worked this style for like since the 80s, and like he's in there with guys younger than him who are the best workers on the planet right now, and like whose cardio is off the charts, and he's keeping up with them. It's an amazing testament to like how tough like Stan Hansen was like as an athlete.
I mean, and when you talk about the idea of surviving this match, it's clear in this portion that we're talking about, Hansen is just, he's shell-shocked. He did not expect, the fight he thought he was showing up for is not the fight he got.
I can believe that as a shoot as well. Like maybe he was told the story of the match from like Baba, like he was told like, this is what we're going to do. But I maybe he wasn't expecting the intensity that he got from Kobashi, because he genuinely looks shocked.
Yeah, like, and I can imagine Kobashi getting pulled to the side by Baba. He's like, all right, let's do it. It's time to put it into action. Let's see what you got, kid.
Go on. Lay it into him. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of you back in the back. Okay. One thing that I liked about the face lock here is that, Kobashi is constantly, changing his position to match like what Hansen is doing. And Hansen is constantly trying to get out of this match. He's trying to get out of it. And like Kobashi's like moving along with him. So it's not a rest hold. It's not something that like is meant to give a rest to these guys, because neither of them are resting. And the fans like are well into like the story of like the psychology of what is happening here. And you gotta keep in mind, Kobashi's got these massive arms. Like I cannot imagine wanting to stay inside a legit squeezing headlock from Kenta Kobashi with the kind of arms that he has.
No, not at all. And looking at what this match was, like you said, this early, this early 3 to 5 minute window of the match, like you said, this isn't a rest hold. It's constant movement. And again, that goes to the cardio, because I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking about maybe some other matches where you'll see a face lock or a chin lock or a reverse chin lock, and you just assume, hey, these guys are catching their breath. No, they're moving. Even when Hansen dips out of the ring, it isn't the traditional, I'm a pissed off heel, kicking the barricade, grabbing it, kind of catching your breath. No, as soon as he's outside of the ring, Kobashi's like a shark in this match. He will continue to keep coming, because he knows if he has a second to lay off, he's afraid that the kind of like this is kind of the adrenaline more than him finally reaching that level. And when Hansen could kind of come back, there might be some problems.
Right. And like Hansen tries to escape the face lock, the side headlock. He tries to escape by hitting a side suplex. And, Kobashi, to his credit, not only hangs on to the hold, Rich, but he starts to crank it on Hansen. He starts cranking, Hansen's head just to tell him, hey, don't fuck with me, boy.
Yeah, and you could feel it. You could, like, everything Hansen does when he's starting his comebacks or anytime he gets offense in, he is basically flipping the bird at this punk, and he just like whippersnapper. Like he would use it in the angriest way possible.
And I mean, like I made this point, but it's really amazing to see this role reversal of Hansen being the one who's constantly fighting from behind, trying to mount a comeback, and Kobashi is dominating him and just cuts off his comebacks. And it's just a shock to see Stan Hansen as the fighting from underneath babyface really in this match.
Yeah, it's definitely Freaky Friday for him. He is no way ready for the hurricane that is Kenta Kobashi coming at him. And it makes me think about how in Hansen's career, in addition to being the gatekeeper, because later in life, he would leave that role and then Vader would enter it and then even follow and continue in that role, and Noah in some respects. But as much as I love Vader, Hansen's delivery of this, especially in this match, he could do it from underneath in a way I thought Vader couldn't with a Kobashi.
Vader had to protect his own image in a lot of ways, like as this monster, like, and like the image that he had with his gear and stuff like that. I think like where he it's not believable if he did this kind of a match where he's fighting from underneath. Like I never like that's the failure of his run in the WWF, because he had to do that to like people like Shawn Michaels, where it's like, no, he should be killing Shawn Michaels, and then Shawn Michaels should be mounting a miraculous comeback against him. But of course, Shawn Michaels being Shawn Michaels back in that era, that was never going to happen. But anyways, there's a point where Stan Hansen runs back into the ring to escape Kobashi, and he hits the ropes, and you think, okay, this is where he's going to turn the tide. He's going to hit a lariat or something, a shoulder tackle, but you know what? Kobashi, he knows Stan Hansen too well. He catches him with this big, massive backdrop that says, Hansen into the air onto his back, and I guess he's a big man. He's what, 280, you think, 290, yeah. And he's just crashing with all his weight onto that hard mat, and Kobashi goes back to the face lock, or it looks like more like a rear chin lock at this point. And I just love the strategy involved here of Hansen of Kobashi asserting his control over Hansen, and the match itself, and trying to break Hansen's spirit, because that's what these locks, these headlocks, these chin locks, these face locks are doing. It's like he's like, I'm grinding you down. I'm just gonna grind you down. I'm gonna not only break your face, but I'm gonna break your soul in this match.
Yeah, and I think, again, we were talking earlier about the Ring of Honor and some of that stuff. I think that's what they miss. And so when you're watching this match and you see him, like the way that he transitions from that backdrop into the face lock, you can see Hansen screaming as he looks at the ref, and he's got the right hand up from the mat, and he's just, ah! You could see that this man is just, he is not in a good place. And so when you see him finally get to his feet, and like you said, he kind of gets those pockets where you think he's going to get his traditional offense in, and you see the grim determination on the face of Kobashi. He feels like he's finally breaking, because with each hit, like even with the chops, with each chop, you can see the fighting spirit leaving Stan Hansen's body. And you can't, I wish wrestlers who are as marks for themselves as they are the company, look at a match like this and look at Hansen, and how Hansen, with just the selling of his face, makes this universal. Because you could see he's an older dude that this young guy's catching up on him, and that's universal, right? You could be playing I could be playing basketball with my son, or hockey with him, or even wrestling, and that first time he shoots a half and I'm getting thrown to the ground, and I'm like, oh crap, now I got to work. And it's just scrambling, because now you feel that the pressure, the shoe's on the other foot. Now the rabbit's got a gun. And that's really what Kobashi's doing in this first 8 minutes.
Yeah. And at this point, Hansen's, he's sitting in the corner. He's on the floor. He's in the corner, and he looks completely helpless. And this is the turn of the tide of the match, Rich, because then Kobashi charges into the corner to finish him off and runs face first into Hansen's boot. And this is the break that Stan Hansen needs. So because of this boot to, that he just, Kobashi basically torpedoes himself into Hansen's boot and knocks himself out, basically. He rolls out of the ring to the floor, but Hansen, being the smart man, being the wily veteran that he is, he senses this is his time. I need to follow up on this. He goes out to the apron. He does a diving body press from the apron to Kenta Kobashi, who's lying on the floor of Budokan Hall. Unbelievable. And then he picks up Kenta Kobashi, and then he power bombs Kenta Kobashi onto the fucking floor of Budokan Hall, and you can hear the sickening thud as Kobashi's body hits the floor. Oh my God.
Yeah, there's two moments in this match. The kick to the face, because the sell of it is Kobashi staggering down, and they just lay next to each other like it's a buddy cop movie, and they're just half dead. And then the power bomb, you could hear the screams and the shrieks from the crowd. And Kobashi, I refuse to say it's a sell. I think that man really did get knocked into Valhalla. He looks like he died and came back. What in God's name did I agree to? He looks half drunk as he's holding on to the barricade, and he's like, oh God. And then the power bomb comes, and even the young boys are getting out of the way. And it's just, there's a person in the front row that you see them kind of lurch away, and the camera zooms in, and Kobashi's just dead. He's trying to get up. And one of the things I always enjoyed, this match started it for me with Kobashi, and part of it was the way he was getting kicked in the face, and I think it was shoot. But he would always look like Rocky in the middle of Rockies 2 through 4 in the middle rounds at this point in matches. Like his eyes would start getting puffy. He'd start breathing a little bit more labored. He'd start peeing on jelly legs. And I'm like, well, that's partly good, selling, and partly my man's probably halfway to, oh God, the elbow to the back of the neck. Halfway to another planet.
I it's a thing that you look at, like, wrestling from this era in Japan, like not just in All Japan but also New Japan as well, and maybe even like FMW and like some of the like junior heavyweight promotions like Michinoku Pro is like, a lot of this isn't selling. A lot of this actually does genuinely hurt, and like especially Roller Road style, like it's tough. Like the reason why like a lot of these dudes are like completely fucked physically is because this shit was not a work. This is like a semi shoot to the point where like they agree to each other, like let's hit each other as hard as possible and just like make it as real as we can without like killing one another. But hey, that is like, like we look back and we think, should I feel guilty about enjoying this? And I'm like, I don't feel guilty about enjoying it because like no one actually died from any of these matches that I'm going to be talking about. So there you go. You know what, Hansen? He follows that up with the power bomb to the floor edge. He follows up with an elbow drop from the apron to Kobashi's back, just as a kind of like exclamation mark. And from there, he goes for the cover. There's a 1 and a 2, but Kobashi has survived a power bomb to the floor, an elbow drop from the apron to the floor, and he's still alive in this match, Rich.
As he's doing it, I don't count this as a kick out, WH. Honestly, okay. I count it as a spasm because the way he kicks out and then afterward his muscles still are like spasming on the ground as Kobashi adjusts his elbow pad, and Hansen adjusts his elbow pad, and Hansen has the look of a man that realizes I'm about to mess somebody up. Like he's like, this is more like it. If he had a tie on, of course he wouldn't. If anything, he'd have a bolo tie where he'd have like the Texas steer on it. He slowly adjusts, like, now we're back in the Hansen land and population U, and Kobashi's lying on the ground. And I don't know if he's being, if something is like, if I could put the Simba meme on top of him of like, get up, Dad, get up, because he looks like he's dead.
I mean, at this point, Hansen just starts to press his advantage on Kobashi. He hits him with tons of kicks and elbows. But, going back to what I said before, he's constantly going for covers on Kobashi because he's not interested in hurting Kobashi or punishing him for like what he put him through earlier in the match. He wants to survive Kobashi. He wants to finish this match and just go to the back and get some of the young boys to take off his gear for him and towel down his body, because that's what young boys did back then, still do to this day in 2021, and then go to probably, go to a hot spring and just like let the, curative effects of an onsen, like do their magic on his body, I'm sure. But like, he's not getting it. Not at this point, Kobashi mounts to come back with chops, slaps, and gives a running boot that knocks Hansen down. Hansen dodges a top rope missile drop kick and immediately covers Kobashi. He doesn't try to hit him with a move. He covers Kobashi, but only gets a 2. He goes for his own flying body press and goes for a cover and only gets a 2. And this crowd is going nuts because they're thinking this match could end at any time, but neither man is staying down for the 3. It's incredible. And, the thing with this sequence is that there's this massive Kobashi call ring out through Budokan Hall.
Yeah, and you can see this is where the cardio comes in with Hansen, because as he's trying to mount this assault and Kobashi, God bless him, is constantly trying to fight and fight and fight and fight. You see him. I don't know how to put this in a nice way. Like, he's clearly tired, but as an excellent worker, he's found a way in between his moves to transition breathing into the next offensive move. It isn't just I'm going to be a layabout and sit in a corner. It's I'm going to take a deep breath and then I'm going to roll a knee into your head. I'm going to take another deep breath and I'm kicking you in the back of the head. I'm moving out of the way of the drop kick. And I'm going to jump on you and try to catch a breath while I'm pinning you. It's very economical.
Oh, I mean, the thing with Hansen is that he's worked Japan so much. He's worked, all Japan for so long that I think he's developed the rhythm of working like, all Japan style, like where you're saying. And I totally agree with you. Like he's found like, okay, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to hit you with something. I'm going to breathe again. Like totally. Like, and that's like, they all have to learn how to do this kind of things to be able to work the big matches, in Baba's promotion, because that's what Baba expected. And Baba was the boss, and no one wanted to disappoint the boss because he was from all accounts, he was a great boss to work for. Like you have various people from like, and a wide ranging of people from Dick Baer to Bruno Sammartino, to Stan Hansen, to Bruiser Brody, to Steve Williams, who all loved working for Giant Baba because from all accounts, they loved like his philosophy of wrestling, and he was a good boss to them. So like for Hansen, like he's in this position where in his mid 40s where he's like the gatekeeper, and he's responsible for kind of like shepherding, the four pillars to becoming the four pillars, that he takes that role seriously. And like, he's not going to like be a layabout in the ring. He's going to do his best to like make sure that when these guys beat him, that it means something.
And that is, again, sign of an excellent professional. And because of the non-wasted movement, when there are lulls, what little lulls there are, because this is a sprint, there's like a 25-minute sprint. It's natural. Like when he had him in the corner and he's setting him up for the chops, this plural. It's Hansen gets a chance to breathe, and then you're about to eat like 17 chops.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite Kobashi spots is he does do the machine gun chops to Hansen in the corner, and from here Hansen and Kobashi just trade blows and advantages for the next couple of minutes before Kobashi just blasts Hansen with another stiff lariat. My God! And you know what? Hansen hasn't hit a single lariat at all in this match, and like Kobashi's hit him with a ton of them. To be fair, it's also because when Hansen hits you with any kind of a lariat is probably the finish of the match. He does go for a lariat. Kobashi ducks the lariat attempt from Hansen. He slaps on a sleeper, but Hansen escapes that. He slaps on the sleeper to a big pop, and like again to Hansen, and just another Kobashi call for a sleeper hold, for God's sakes. Kobashi goes for a springboard bulldog, but Hansen wisely turns it into a backdrop suplex. Hansen signals that he's gonna, he does the signal. He pulls on the elbow pad. He's signaling for the Western lariat, his finisher. But Kobashi ducks that. He hits a succession of leg drops to the back of Hansen's head and neck, including a top rope, what I would call a top rope Alabama jam, a la Bobby Eaton, to the back of Hansen's head. And I think this is it. He's killed him. 1, 2. Hansen kicks out. Holy shit! This match has just gone to another level, Rich.
Yeah, and as you get to that point, you're wondering, well, I mean, this guy's dead, right? Like, this is it, right? Nope, not enough. And Hansen's sell of the Alabama Jam, again, just like Kobashi's sell of the Power Bomb, and again, parenthetical, probably not a sell. The way his body is quivering as he rolls him over, and he uses Kobashi's hand, again, being a Stan Hansen truther and a Kobashi appreciator. I have to say, probably this match should have ended with the press from the leg drop, because Hansen didn't kick out. He grabbed Kobashi by his hair and pulled him a millimeter off his chest, because at this point, big man is tired.
But it's realistic.
Yes.
It's real. So it's like, it's awesome. It doesn't have to kick out. He doesn't have to do like, some contrived like kick out sequence that you're going to find in like modern New Japan or 2000s Ring of Honor or like any indie match in the United States from the last 20 years. It's like, this would make sense. Okay. Like, you're right, Rich. He's tired. So he just grabs him by the hand. Cause this is like, you know what, if I'm Hansen, that's what I would do to try to prevent myself from getting, from eating the loss in this match.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me because Hansen, there's only been little moments outside of the young boy beatdown where he's been in full like Gaijin jerk mode, and it was the first pin. where Kobashi kicked out and he flicks the ref's ear. And that's the most like you jerk. And he's like, no, that was 3. He's like, no, it was 2.5. Like, not even close. He thought he could intimidate the ref into doing it. So I feel like that kind of came back to haunt him later as, this got into extreme punch phase head kick mode where the ref probably could have come in and broken it up. But he was like, you know what? Nah, let him suffer.
I should mention that the referee of this match is the legendary Joe Higuchi, and no one was going to like intimidate Joe Higuchi inside that ring or backstage either. Do you know the famous story I was reading Hansen's book? There's a famous story that he tells in there where Harley Race was touring as the NWA champion for All Japan with Baba, and Harley Race had a good relationship with Baba, but there's one morning where Harley Race, he was holding up the bus because they said Joe Higuchi went up to him and said, Harley, get on the bus, we got to go to the next town. And Harley's like, no, I haven't had breakfast yet, I'm going to finish this breakfast. He's like, okay. So he finished his breakfast and he never came back for another tour for All Japan.
Wow.
So one thing you don't do is you don't cross Joe Higuchi because he's got the full support of Giant Baba, and you don't hold up the bus to go to the next town when you work for a Japanese company, even if you're Harley Race. So
you get on the bus, you keep your mouth shut, and you acknowledge that a lot of the talent are going to pretend they don't know English and call it a day.
Yeah, basically. So, that's in Hansen's book. Great book, by the way. From back to the match, Kobashi hits his signature moonsault, and you think, okay, this is the end of the match, Rich. Nope. As he kicks out of the moonsault. Incredible. But he's Hansen. This is 1993 Kobashi, and it's still Hansen. So, yeah, he gets to kick out of the moonsault that pretty much would finish off any other person in All Japan. And the crowd heat, unbelievable. It's off the charts, Rich. I can imagine myself being in Budokan right now, up in the upper decks and just feeling the heat of the crowd, the excitement of the crowd. And I get sucked into watching it on this grainy version on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's funny because when he goes for the moonsault, I always love to see the crowd. And you see these women who are in the corner of that part of the Budokan, and they are ecstatic that he is about to float majestically into the air, and they get to see it front row. It is magical watching it. And now, of course, like you said, there's a price to be paid with a lot of the Royal Road. In the case of Kobashi, his beloved knees. But every time he lands those moonsaults, especially as we start in this process, it's me well, that probably didn't work out for him as much as he thought it would. And this next portion of the match actually is where I got to be wrestling hipster and say, oh, Terry Bollea, you're not as cool anymore because Stan Hansen's cooler because he does this better.
Oh, you're talking about so Hansen fights back after this moonsault. He fights back with elbows, and he hits this amazing looking enziguri to Kobashi's head. And yes, he doesn't do it better than Hulk Hogan, who is but a pretender to the throne of top gaijin to ever work Japan, of Stan Hansen.
Yeah, it's not even I again, this is the portion of the match for the next 5 minutes or so where I realize, by nature, most of my friends know I'm a very emotive person when I'm watching wrestling matches, especially for the first time, especially when we were doing this in college, because it's 2:00 in the morning and our RA's yelling to keep it quiet. But I think I got a noise violation for the noises I was making just seeing this man, oh my God. And it's shh, just watch the match. And I'm no, I can't. I will not be tamed.
There's a point where, Hansen just desperately grabs Kobashi's foot to prevent him from launching any more assaults to him. So you think, oh, he's going to go for another moonsault. I got to grab his foot. He's going to do more leg drops to me. I got to grab his foot. It's just brilliant to see. Kobashi goes for a series of roll-ups on Hansen because he wants to end the match because he can smell that ever-elusive win is so close. He wants to just pin Hansen at this point. So he's not going for big moves. He's just rolling him up, cradles, small packages, schoolboys, everything that he can think of. He just wants to get that win. But, Hansen just kicks out of everything. Kobashi hits another stiff legged, and there's another 2 count. Kobashi slams Hansen to the mat as a prelude to his moonsault. And this is anyone who's ever watched a Kenta Kobashi match that involves a moonsault knows what's coming next. So he slams him. He does the movement with his arm. Yeah. he's gonna walk over his opponent's body, climb those ropes to hit the moonsault. But you know what? You know who's also aware of this, Rich? Stan Hansen. He's aware that Kobashi is going to go for his definitive finisher here. So as soon as Kobashi steps over him and starts climbing the ropes, Hansen, just ekes out that last bit of adrenaline. He gets up too, and he goes up to stop the moonsault from happening. So the way he does this, he hits shots to the back, headbutts to the head, and then he realizes this is not going to work. I have to change my angle of attack. Stan Hansen goes to the outside, to the apron to get this better angle. And Kobashi at first, realizes this. He catches him by the hair and he rams Stan Hansen's head into his own knee. And you got to think Stan Hansen is like hating life at this point, in this match. But you know what? Hansen fires back with these chops. But Kobashi answers back with elbows to his face. But it doesn't matter because Hansen headbutts Kobashi here. And then he fucking knocks Kobashi into another fucking galaxy with a Western lariat that knocks Kobashi off the top rope and elicits a scream of terror from the lead commentator of this match, from myself, and apparently you when you're back in college.
Absolutely. This is where I just went. I made the same noise the announcer did, to the point where my friends thought I had turned the volume up, because it was just like, ah! Like it was, and we had just as a quick side note to this. At the time I was getting these tapes, there was a local money mark here in Pittsburgh when I was in college that was hiring me to help set up like a website for him for autograph signings and stuff. So he started bringing in ECW guys. So he brought in Nova, and Nova, around the time I bought this tape from ECW, introduced me to the world of Fire Pro. So this was, in my opinion, the first time I saw a real world critical in a wrestling match. Like he just died. He just fell off the top rope and he was gone.
He was blasted off the top rope out of Budokan Hall, and just he went to another galaxy. Then he landed back on the mat, and Hansen rolls and unconscious Kobashi over, and I think he's unconscious for the 1, 2, 3. So not only did Stan Hansen survive Kenta Kobashi's assault for near 20 minutes of this match, but he was able to outlast him and win the match. And he earned that win. Rich, like fucking hell, like he went through a lot to get that win. It was an earned win. And I just thought this sequence, this is an amazing and dramatic finishing sequence. And this is one of the best finishes I've ever seen in my entire life of watching wrestling. And, Hansen is happy to get the win, but he knows that he has survived, with one of the toughest men he's ever faced in the ring. I think he's really proud of Kobashi, and I got to think he probably went back in the back. He congratulated him and just said, thank you for that amazing match, and he's such a legend. Even though he's kind of like they wanted to see Kobashi beat him, he's such a legend that when he does his victory cry, the crowd just joins him because he's Stan Hansen. He means a lot to this All Japan crowd.
Yeah, when he does it and they go boo, and I love the post match where they show the zoom in features of, and Kenta Kobashi was sent back to his home planet, and the bruises on his face. After the pinfall, immediately after the pinfall, the lone streamer that got thrown in because that one fan in row 4 was just like, yeah, we did it. And it's like everybody else is just like, we just watched a man die. Can someone call his next of kin?
No.
It's great. It's such a great visual.
Rich, that lone streamer was meant to represent the lone tear from that fan as his hero, Kenta Kobashi, got murdered by Stan Hansen.
I love it because you see Hansen after he's gotten the pinfall, he's just laying on the bottom rope and he's just like, I told you I'd beat him. Oh God, I can't see out of my left eye. He just looks like, again, an old a veteran that has seen some crap, that is just grizzled. That's the word, not grizzled young vets, as much as I love those guys. This is a grizzled vet right here that is just, I'm tired of this. I'm getting too old for these young whippersnappers getting in my ring, telling me they could beat me using my move. You just imagine all the grievances he would have as he's going to the back. Where's my beer? Like just everything. He's just cantankerous old man. I love it. I absolutely
Yeah, I
love it.
mean, like you watch performances like this and like his entire body of work from Japan and in the time that he was active. And like when people tell me like, oh, Kenny Omega is the greatest foreign wrestler to ever work in Japan, I'm like, you've never watched Stan Hansen, have you? You say to me, oh, Vader is the greatest big man to ever work in the sport of wrestling. Well, I respect Vader, but you've never watched Stan Hansen work, have you? Like people tell me like he's the greatest wrestler to come out of Texas. Yeah, you've never watched Stan Hansen. Like they say, oh, Dusty Rhodes, and I love Terry Funk. Terry Funk's the greatest wrestler to come out of Texas. Yeah, you never watched Stan Hansen, have you? So
yeah,
I have a lot of love for Stan Hansen. So
it also reminds me of how much I loved at this point when he came in the return of Tenru, because he came in with the idea of when he returned to All Japan. I mean, and this is really the basically after the split, just I'm angry old man as an aesthetic. And I love that. Like Hansen had it for years and years and years as the Gaijin, but seeing Tenru do it, I felt like he was doing a Hansen like tribute.
Well, they got along so well, right? So like,
yeah.
like him, Tenru and Hansen were partners for a short time, and they were a great tag team together. But they were legit, like I think, good, like friends with each other. They all were, that whole crew were like friendly with one another, like Tenru and Jumbo and Hansen and all that, right? So like for Tenru, when he returns after the Noah split, like by Baba and by Kawada, it's like he's like, like I'm now this age that Hansen is in 1993. Like he's basically that age now. And when he returns in like 2000, and he's like, you know what? Who can I model myself after? Stan Hansen. Yeah. And he, you know what? Genricho Tenru is one of the greatest grumpy old men in the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, listen, my favorite thing, WH, about Tenru is when he came back after the split, he made a new finisher called 53 years old.
Yeah.
Like I'm old. I'm putting you, a 53-year-old man's about to drop you on your head. Deal with it. And that to me was just him as a way of life at that point. Like, listen, I'm too old for this crap. I'm either going to knock you out or you're going to knock me out. I ain't got time for the flippy floppy.
Yeah, but he was such a great worker that his matches were like so compelling and believable that you could believe that he's beating guys way younger than him, because they can't handle like his, like how grizzled of a vet he is, like, and how tough he is and how calloused he is. That's the same with Hansen in this match. Is like, Hansen has survived wars. He survived wars against Jumbo, against Tenru, against Ricky Choshu, against Bruiser Brody, Abdul the Butcher, Terry Funk. He's had, minor stints in the AWA and WCW against people like, Nick Bockwinkel and Rick Martel and I guess Lex Luger. Sure. Okay. We'll throw in Lex Luger there. So, you know what I mean? Like it's a hell of a career. Like I look at Stan Hansen's career and I'm like, for me, like if I was a wrestler, I would love to have a career like Stan Hansen, like be a journeyman, but always have that home base in Japan where I'm having the best wrestling that no one outside of Japan knows about.
Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of folks, and I guess it's with the age of now with the internet and where streaming services, they don't get that. If you can do that, like with a guy like, who I would love to see, I actually WH do this, is Samoa Joe if he gets medically cleared. That would be a good way for him to kind of live out the rest of his career. Go over there, do it legit. Don't have to worry about any of these guys. Like I was talking with Wade last week on Everything, my show there with him. I'll be doing later today on VIP for the Torch. And, some folks wanted him to go in the bubble, and I could see the novelty of that. But I think Joe has grown beyond that. I think he can do that true traveling American style where he's the, grumpy old man that's going to be a gatekeeper and have great matches and be physical, as opposed to just this, I don't know. Cosplay seems too like a Jim Cornette word to use. So I don't know what the right word is to use.
I don't think of, a lot of the wrestlers that go over to Japan have the same kind of mentality as someone like Stan Hansen or Terry Gordy or Steve Williams had, in their time. Like some people just do it for the money, or they think it's something that they should do as a wrestler because they watch so many tapes of Japanese wrestling growing up, like you and I, they're like of a similar age or younger than us, that they think, oh, I watched all this New Japan stuff, I should go over to wrestle for New Japan as a junior heavyweight or as a heavyweight. Like, the person I think that's probably has a better chance of having that kind of like career as Hansen is like Jeff Cobb, like as he's portrayed now as like kind of this badass and like, this bruiser of a big man. Like, that's who I think should, that more than Samoa Joe. Like, Samoa Joe, I would love to see that, but I don't think he would have, because he's wasted like so much of his career in America. Like, he should have been in Japan. Like, when he was Ring of Honor champion, he should have told Gabe, listen, I'm doing my tours of wherever, and then when I'm not on tour, I'll defend this belt for you, like, no problem, and I'll represent the company well. But he should have worked Japan, like, whether it's for Noah. I think probably would have been better for Noah or All Japan at that time. That's what he should have been doing instead of wasting his time, especially when he went to TNA. That should have been his Japan time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that should have been. And it would have been so glorious for him. And I even look at someone like Chris Hero, who kind of fell apart, and then WWE went to the NXT, and like there are so many other avenues. And for him, I was really surprised, because him and Joe are like the two guys that I always see as they see the history, they know the history, they respect the history, and they could kind of be part of the history. Because he, in the case of Hero, he tried to be the grumpy old man wrestler deal, but they threw him in NXT UK, which is such an insult to his ability. Like, no, you didn't need to do that, man. And now, I kind of, I'll get bits and pieces of his podcast, but at this point, I get, even pre-COVID or post-COVID, why he wouldn't necessarily want to do the travel. But with Joe, that should be first thing on his mind.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with Chris Hero, like, he should have also like just said, you know what, I'm just going to try to get that no gate. The problem with my theory about Chris Hero is that, like, he was too good at everything, not good at one thing. And like, Japanese wrestling likes people to be good at one thing.
Oh, wow. That's a good way of looking at it. I never
like, he was too good at everything. Like, oh, I can do the British style. Oh, I can do strong, ProRes. I can do the Royal Road. No, just be good at one thing, and they would probably have like signed him and given him a massive push. You know what I mean? Like, because if you look at like the guys who get massive pushes in any Japanese company, they know how to do one thing really well. And like, they can be good at everything, but they focus on one thing when they work in Japan. And I don't think Chris Hero did that. So.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that. I think that's the dirty secret a lot of fans, when you first get into Japanese wrestling, don't realize, is that it's not that there isn't a diversity of moves from maybe, say, what you see in the United States. It's that when people find what they do, they stick to it. And a lot of times what they stick to in America is whatever the style is of the parent company. And so if you're like WWE, here is your McDonald's box. Here's the menu you pick from. God bless. If you're AEW, you can kind of do what you want, but we're not going to give you the internal logic to make this make sense. All Japan, New Japan, especially in that era, you had to get in and fit in. You couldn't be Stan Hansen 27. You had to be Chris Hero. And if Chris Hero does if he wanted to be a heavier version of what Black Magic was doing in Mexico, great. If he wanted to be William Regal for them or Steven Regal for them, great. But like you said, if you're trying to be that jack of all trades, that ain't gonna fly.
No, but he's trying to be Stan Hansen, Johnny Saint, and Gran Hamada all in one kind of thing. So it's kind of a weird thing for Chris Hero to do that. And I got a lot of respect. I think him, Joe, Danielson, and Loki, like, they should have just plied their trade for whatever Japanese company was willing to pay them a good amount of money to fly over every 2 weeks, every 3-4 weeks, and just work. That's what I think they should have done. And they would have been legends in Japan. Do you know what I mean? Like, they could have forged that kind of legacy that Stan Hansen and Brody and Williams and Gordy and Vader did. And, and Dynamite Kid to some extent, but it is what it is. American wrestling benefited from that. That's okay. But final thoughts on Kobashi versus Hansen here, Rich.
Like I said, this was the match that got me into Royal Road. This is the match that then opened actually my whole mindset of going into New Japan as well, because that's when, you can do the quick Google and find out, this is the late 90s. And I'm like, oh, so this is the dude that knocked Vader's eye out. I want to see that. I would like to see it. And then, seeing all the viciousness of Vader in All Japan, Vader and Noah. To this day, my buddy Chris and I always have the joke of, he's like, why only Japanese? When he was trying to go after the title. He's like, Kawada, Kobashi, why only Japanese? No, not Kawada, Vader is. And it's just how he was so simple but effective. It is one-man Clubber Lang-esque treatise on why he needed a shot at first the Triple Crown and then later the Noah Global Honored Crown. But yeah, this is my entry. This is my gateway drug. I am better for it as a wrestling fan. And I inform, like I said, that little stinger we mentioned before. If I hadn't seen and appreciated this match, I would not have appreciated meeting those two men, especially because Kobashi had never been brought into a one of those sort of conventions before in the United States, because promoters didn't think people would pay to see him, which again, I just want to slap people sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, modern wrestling fans, they don't have a great appreciation of the past, maybe. But for me, like, this is a quintessential match for both. If you want to get to know more about Stan Hansen and Kenta Kobashi more so, because this is like the preview, the prelude to like what we're going to get years down the road from him as a dominant force in All Japan Pro Wrestling, as a professional wrestler, as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. Like I'm kind of in my head right now, like there's that whole GWE greatest wrestler ever kind of movement that's happening, spearheaded by your colleague, Alan Farrell. And like, I've been thinking about who's on my list. And like, like it's either like, number one spot's either like Kobashi or Jumbo Tsuruta, and I can't decide which one. Like, it always changes week to week, Rich. And this match is a good, kind of sampling of what makes Kobashi one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And I wouldn't say necessarily this is like a definitive Hansen performance, because he is actually playing the underdog in this match. But this is a great match. Like, if you want to get a well-rounded view of Stan Hansen, this is a match you have to see. Like, him fighting from underneath and eventually getting that massive win with like just blasting Kobashi with that clothesline, with that lariat. And I would say, like, if you only watch the matches where he just beats the shit out of people, then you're not getting the full range of an appreciation for Stan Hansen. So this is definitely something both fans of both men should definitely watch. I think it's so important to like All Japan going forward, because I think it proved to the fans that, hey, Kobashi is it. Like, he dominated. He lost the match, but he dominated Hansen. And like, when he eventually gets that win, I'm sure the place went nuts. I haven't watched the match in a long time myself, but eventually I'm sure someone's going to pick it to review, and we'll talk about it then. But Rich, thank you for joining me here on the Long and Winding Royal Road. Where can people find more of your work?
Absolutely. You can find me on social media, on Twitter at Rich_Fann, F-A-N-N, where I put most of my stuff out. My home is The Torch. Every week I put out several shows. First of all, the Deep Dive with Rich Fann, which is my weekly free show that is a 1 hour look at anything I want really in the world of wrestling and beyond. I usually bring on a guest or two, like WH. At some point, I'm going to be getting on him to come on, and we could talk about the greatness of Kenchan.
We're not.
We're not.
We'll talk about someone I actually like. That'd probably be better.
We'd probably do a salute to Tenru. I'd take a page out of Tool Time from Home Improvement, like a salute to Gachuru Teru, because I think that would be a delightful chat we could have on him.
Definitely.
And then I also do now a new show on the VIP side, Everything with Rich Fann, where everything about wrestling's on the table. I'll talk about this a little bit and our discussion, as well as kind of shows and things off the beaten path. And finally, I write columns for The Torch, and I started by being a co-host of the East Coast Cast, which is really me, Travis Bryan, and Cam Hawkins talking about wrestling, politics, life, and everything in between. And as we joke, it's not minivan friendly, though I think at the Post you guys are pretty, not adult content. That sounds like you guys are doing
we're like,
some...
like to bring it into comic book kind of like thing, like we're the Vertigo brand of wrestling podcasts,
Yeah, you guys are definitely Vertigo, and we try to stick by the comics code. Whenever I have Will on, I have to remind him several times, Will, this is a free show. You can't curse all the time, Will. And then he'll slip one through and think that Wade won't hear it and say, like, shoot. I said shoot. It's like, nothing. Now I got to find the timestamp. He's a mess. And he's also set several records being a guest on my show, including a 5-hour interview with the owner, producer, promoter of Rev Pro, Andy Quilden, which got us yelled at for a little bit on the internet, but I'm used to that now.
Oh yeah, whatever. I haven't listened to. I listened to some of it, and I was just like, yeah, I don't want to listen to Andy Quinlan. I didn't want to even listen to Andy Quinlan doing commentary for 2 hours, let alone a whole interview with the dude. So, but hey, you know what? Will did that. You guys did that. That's awesome. Like, I think the Torch does some amazing content. I think there's a lot of deep analysis going on there. I'm a big proponent of like sending people over there. What's something else that I can listen to besides like the Post Wrestling WH? Well, you should go listen to The Torch. You should go listen to Grapple. Like, those are all amazing, places to get great analysis of professional wrestling. And definitely, Rich, we'll have you back on the show. Maybe we'll have you on doing like one of the bonus episodes of Post Perez in the near future. If you're still watching a lot of Japanese wrestling, we'll get you on that. You can find me, everyone. You can find me at WH Park 9. That's the number 9. You can find me on MCU later, where we're going to talk about the upcoming Loki show. And Rich, you're definitely going to be invited to talk about an episode of Loki if you're up for that.
Absolutely.
And maybe, I don't know if you're a big Doctor Who fan. I'm sure we're going to tie in like Doctor Who references to talk about Loki, because it seems to be all about time traveling and the such. But that's on a hiatus, as like Marvel's taking a kind of a hiatus between the end of the Falcon or Captain America and the Winter Soldier, as it was rebranded in the last episode, and then the new Loki show. So we're going to be taking a bit of a break from that, but we'll be back with that. And then, yeah, Post Perez, this show. And Rich, I got to tell you, this is episode 11. Episode 12 means we're going to do a biography episode. And next week, and then not next week, but the next episode after this one is our biography look at Kenta Kobashi. And it's going to be co-hosted by myself and one Case-Low from Voices of Wrestling. So that's going to be an exciting episode. So please check that out when it hits your feeds. And on behalf of Rich, I want to thank all listeners for supporting this show. And we will talk to you next time. And until then, goodbye.